Hey, this is Vu, and today I'm going to be talking about how to hold A on the updated Dust2. And I know what you're thinking, Vu, updated Dust2 is exactly the same as the old Dust2. And for the most part, you're right. However, you're pretty much right, but there is a difference in the timing when you get to long. And it doesn't seem like very much, but it is actually very important. In old Dust2, you couldn't actually commit to holding long because the terrorists got there at the same time or slightly before the counter-terrorists, meaning if they just spammed flashes over, they could be out to blue bin a lot of the time by the time you got around here. It was actually very annoying and hard to deal with. And the standard way of dealing with it would have been one player back here with a flash, throwing this flash, which is, by the way, a pop flash on this Dust2, and two players up here with their back turned. The flash would come out a little bit delayed, so you'd let the terrorists come out, flash pops, come around, try and find a kill, and back off. That's a typical way that people used to try and hold on to long, or at least get some damage done at long, or get information at long at the very least. Nowadays, all you need to really do is nade stack it. One way I like to see people do it is one person throws a nade, one person throws a molly, and they've got a very good Dust2 long hold down. And one of the things you can do is you can do this for the first few gun rounds and then not do it every round of the half, because players are going to be a little bit hesitant to go long if someone has already died to a nade stack. You don't really want to go for this corner pick with an op if there's a decent chance you just get nade stacked and you basically waste $6,000 Adren style. So you probably are going to see a lot less terrorists going fast towards long, and that really was one of the harder things to hold on old Dust2. It was quite hard to hold on to long if players forced it a lot, and so on new Dust2, from my experience, I've only played this map 5 or 6 times. However, in my experience, terrorist teams are hitting a little bit more towards middle, just because they can't force out long quite as easily based on the new layout of the map. Dust2, this short is a little bit easier to smoke off because it's not got the wideness of the old short, so it's a little bit easier to delay people around there as well. And terrorist teams just tend to be forcing out middle a little bit more, at least a little bit more. So the typical setup I would recommend towards Dust2 or long here is one in pit, one game helper, and one towards the elevator area here. And this guy can be the quick rotator to mid. So he's an A player typically, but if mid's being pressured, he can come over, toss a flash, he can jump up, push through the smoke, all these sorts of things. And he can support that mid player, but also be here in time. And when he plays elevator, if the terrorists are trying to force out cat, all he's really trying to do here is delay. So he can toss a flash off the wall here or over, something like that. That was a double click flash. And all he's trying to do is delay and support your player that's game helper going for these easy op shots. Now in matchmaking and in pugs, these op shots are typically incredibly easy. It's very uncommon that terrorist sides are going to effectively flash you off and effectively peek you, especially if they're worried about a player elevator, so they can't just dry peek you or time their flash and peek perfectly if a player's elevator. So this guy can get one, usually 2 or 3 kills just by falling back and taking the easy shots on these different angles. So there you have it. That's how you play these 2 angles, which are very simple in general. This guy is a lot more about timing, being in the right spot at the right time. The car player is more about hitting shots and supporting long a little bit early, knowing when to take this peek and when not to. And the player at long plays a lot like old Dust2, pretty much exactly the same. Pit is still a bit of a death trap, and that's something you have to worry about on pistol round. If you get into pit, it's very easy for Glocks to run out. You don't hit your first couple shots, and then you're shooting in angles like this, which are very awkward. So although pit does seem like such a great angle to play on pistol round, you can peek around, you have lots of room to take these peeks, and it's buffed a little bit with this angle being a little bit stronger. It's still a bit of a death trap, and you do definitely have to worry about playing it. Even if you have a player towards long corner here, it's easy for this guy to get headshotted and you to get taken down. So on pistol round, I would actually recommend playing a guy towards car, playing a guy corner and maybe playing a guy towards plat. This type of situation where you've got a good situation, you're trying to hold on to both angles, but you haven't trapped anybody in pit early round for the terrorist to come out with 5 people. Now later on in the round, getting a player into pit makes a little bit more sense because it's less likely that the terrorists come out long with 5 players, and if they do, your team is able to rotate a little bit more quickly. Pit, I find, is a very good angle to play when 2 or 3 terrorists come out because you can fall back and it's easier to support. But if 5 players come out, as I said, it's a bit of a death trap. Once you've got guns, Pit's obviously a very strong angle, and they've actually made it a little bit stronger, of course, by this angle that I just showed, but also by the fact that this railing here is a little bit longer or higher, which means you can throw flashes like this a little bit more easily. Flashes that are obvious and opponents are going to see and turn from, you can just throw it out like that, and then you can peek with it. You can throw these from a variety of different angles and peek with them because opponents are going to turn away. You can also right click it, and this is one of my favorite things to do from pit now, is just toss those flashes, peek out behind them, grab a free kill, peek back in, or alternatively, you can just wait for your car player to throw a flash towards long, or he can also smoke off long doors if you're playing here. There's plenty of videos on smokes on this map already, but one of the easy ways to smoke off doors is just throw a smoke like that up from that U, and that's going to smoke out just outside doors. They can come behind this, but they're smoked off until they're visible. Or you can smoke deep just by throwing it up from here. So those are the easy ways to smoke long from back there. And you can have your long player, your car player support, and you can play towards pit or on the wall here. One of the nice things about pit actually in this update isn't that this corner is actually stronger, but this angle is a lot stronger, and this angle kind of shuts off people from checking this back corner. So on an eco round, I found that as opposed to old Dust2, where people consistently check this angle goes unchecked a decent amount, and you can actually surprise people, get some kills here. But the main thing you want to be thinking about on gun rounds at long is just to hold on to long. It can be very tempting to go for this aggression into long doors, and in pugs, of course, you're probably going to want to go for that a decent portion of the time. However, the problem with doing that, if you're playing this 3-man setup, is as soon as this long guy dies, it kind of ruins the whole setup. An opper can't effectively hold long from corner with no support from a rifler. It's easy for him to get flashed off, and then an opper posts, and if he repeats, he just dies. And then terrorists get out, and it's very hard to hold on to. And it's already awkward if they're pressuring cat for him to worry about cat and long, even if there is a rifler there. If there's no rifler there, you're basically giving up cat, and you're basically, for the most part, giving away the round if your opponent's just split towards A. So you have to be very worried about getting killed towards long. Maybe you want to play 2 players there if you're going to play aggressive. But it is also important, and this is one of the things about, this is a CS thing, you know, it's important to get this information. It can be very big to flank, but at the same time, you're basically throwing the round if you die. So you have to be very worried about that. But otherwise, long is pretty easy to hold. A is typically fairly easy to hold. If you just play a standard setup, have a solid opper, and maybe you try and switch it up by playing towards cat occasionally. So I'd say 1 gun round or maybe 2 gun rounds and a half, you want to put some pressure on cat, or you want to put a little bit of pressure aggressive on long. Otherwise, playing this setup is going to give you some pretty good results, and in general, matchmaking teams are pretty receptive to a basic setup like this, especially one that's so standard nowadays. So anyways, thanks for watching, and I hope this helped.